Hi, this is Richard Kuzami, and this is the November meeting of the Old Astoria Neighborhood Association. Thank you for joining us. We greatly appreciate everybody's participation. I'd like to start off with taking a quick moment to a moment of silence to remember those in the Middle East who are having to go through such trials and tribulations. And we hope for peace soon for all. So, for a moment. Okay, thank you. Okay, so it's our November 15th meeting, and our program is going to feature a discussion on the new public realm and the New York City Office of the Public Realm. Plus, we're also going to discuss different small business issues. We'd like to start with some announcements. The first announcement will be the Port Authority will be joining us on December 12th at the Sweet Spot on 31st Street at 6:30 p.m. And we are going to be discussing the proposed shuttle from the Ditmars and 31st Streets station going to LaGuardia. This is a replacement for the air train that was previously approved and then disapproved. So I think this is something that's going to be our first live meeting in quite a while. So we do hope people come down and make their thoughts heard on this important subject. There will be other presenters also to be determined. Also, we'd like to let everybody know, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, the Revell mopeds that have been such an integral part of our community for years. The small mopeds that people leave at their destinations and then somebody else picks them up. They are being shut down. They will no longer be in service. They had too many problems and legal issues. A lot of them were predicated from, frankly, people abusing the service, not wearing helmets, not following traffic laws, and it got to be too big a liability for them, so that they are shutting down the service. They are still running a car rental service. You've seen their larger vehicles, the electric cars. So anyways, it's a shame to see something like this disappearing because of a few people abusing it, but this is what happens. Also, on a brighter note, Rise Light and Power has received the authorization to convert the Ravenswood Big Alice plant. And that's the one with the big stacks that you see when you're crossing the Queensboro Bridge into Queens. If you look on your left-hand side, this is a peaker plant that has been around for many years and has been a big fossil fuel user and polluter of our neighborhood for many, many, many years. The Rise Light and Power purchased the facility, and they are going to be converting it as a station to transmit wind power. So we're looking forward to this, and we're looking forward to the conversion of all of the fossil fuel plants in our neighborhood to sustainable power. That's very good news. I'd also like to mention that DOT did approve an all-way stop at 18th Street and Astoria Park South, the southern entrance to the Astoria Park and the track and field house. That has been greatly needed. You have a lot of dog owners and pedestrians constantly crossing there, particularly during the park season. And it was just a disaster waiting to happen. So we're glad that they got ahead of it and they have put in the four-way stop. And also, I think there's 1 week, I don't have this specific date yet, but the participatory budgeting from Councilman Tiffany Kavan's office will be accepting for 1 week ideas for different projects. So if you go to her website, if you Google her, you should check it out and give your ideas for what you think will improve the neighborhood in terms of capital expense projects. Okay, thank you. So that's some of the news that we have. Okay, and I'd like to start the program with, a very interesting subject. The mayor and the city just recently started a program or an office of the public realm. So Along those lines, we've invited the new director, who I've known for many years, and she's a great director, and I'm sure she'll do a wonderful job, Ya-Ting Liu. And Ya-Ting, if you could join us. Hi, how are you?
Good. Hi, Richard. And hi,
Good.
everybody out there that's tuning in. Thank you for
Thanks.
having me tonight.
It's our pleasure. So, I guess I'm going to pretty much leave it to you. I'll have a few
Yeah.
questions later, but explain what is the public realm. This sounds like something out of King Arthur and the Round Table, but
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit different. So, if you could explain what it is that
Yep.
you do and how you hope to improve everybody's quality of life, that would be great. So,
Yeah.
take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you, Richard. Thank you. And good evening, everybody. Nice to meet everyone. And Richard, again, and to the Old Astoria Neighborhood Association, thank you so much for having me. Ya-Ting Liu, I'm the Chief Public Realm Officer for the City of New York. This is a newly created position within City Hall, something that a lot of different advocacy groups that are focused on improving the built environment have been calling for a really long time. Um, the most common question that I get is public realm, like defender of the realm, what is that? In fact, when I told my kiddos that I was sort of being appointed and I got this post, my 11-year-old is like, what does that even mean? Are you supposed to be in charge of the outside? How is that supposed to work? So I wanted to take this opportunity and to sort of give you guys a high level view of what is the role and what are some of the major initiatives that we're working on. And then, we could take it from there, get some questions from Richard. But at a high level, when you think about New York City sort of public spaces, when you step outside your building and you step onto the sidewalk, to the curb, to the street, a median, a pocket park, a plaza, a playground, all of these different places have effectively a agency alphabet soup that oversee the kind of jurisdiction and regulation of these spaces, right? And as a member of the public, whether you are just a neighbor, a local resident, or you're a neighborhood association, or you're a business improvement district, and you have either you see an issue that you want to be addressed, or you have any ideas in terms of improvements, or maybe you want to do some programming activation, you have to navigate oftentimes a really sort of confusing Byzantine kind of agency alphabet soup to get the answer. And so, what this role is designed to do, and I sit here at City Hall, as you all can see, and I report up to the Deputy Mayor for Operations, Mira Joshi, and I work very closely, and I have the privilege and luxury of working very closely with Deputy Mayor for Housing, Workforce, Economic Development as well, and their team to effectively have a one-stop shop and to be kind of playing like a quarterback role within City Hall to make sure that all of these different agencies that touch and impact public spaces talk to each other, and that they're coordinated, that we are able to kind of get questions back out to the public, and sort of resolve issues in a more timely manner. So that is sort of high level in terms of the role and where I sit and the kind of reporting structure. And in terms of some of the major initiatives that I'm working on, or our team is working on here, it has to do with basically creating more vibrant public spaces throughout the city in all five boroughs. I think that there, especially post COVID, there's a recognition of just how critical our public spaces are throughout the city, and and they are, our front yards and backyards effectively. And not only do we need more of it, we also need to make sure that the spaces that we do have are well maintained. And we also often rely on partners such as yourselves to do that maintenance work, that programming work, the activation work to make that space feel good, like a space that you want to spend time in, right? But at the same time, city government also makes it very hard. There's a lot of red tape and bureaucratic hurdles that we put people through to do these kind of partnerships. So my job is like twofold. It's sort of what I call hardware, trying to expand the public space footprint throughout the city. And it's also software, which is the red tape and the related to like the activation, maintenance, and programming, how we can reduce the friction when external partners want to partner with the city to do those spaces. Other big projects we're working on, just to highlight, outdoor dining is a major sort of initiative that our team has been spearheading, that I've been spearheading with DOT and SBS. Um, we have some also sidewalk shed reform. So, the perennial sidewalk shed or scaffolding that goes up and stays up forever. We're actively working with DOB and the city council to try to advance a package of legislation that could really um, improve and sort of shift incentives for building owners so that they're getting the facade repair done faster and taking the shed down faster. And there's more sort of accountability there. So those are just, and in addition to a lot of the other things that we've heard coming out of this administration related to, containerization um, and these other efforts that make sort of New Yorkers' experience of moving throughout the city hopefully more pleasant and wonderful. So I'll stop there. I know I was sort of, rambling on for a while, but hopefully that gives you a good sort of high level picture.
That gives a great overview. Good. I like that. In fact, you answered one of the main questions that I had, which was basically how do you relate to the other agencies and
Yeah.
who reports to who? So that was one of the questions that I had actually. So
Yeah, I'll say this. I think so much of the public space, it really is. I understand why like advocates have been calling for this role for such a long time, because I have to tell you, Richard, and for those that are watching, there is rarely an issue or a project or like a policy related to any sort of public space footprint that doesn't involve multiple agencies.
mhm,
So even if it's like a street and okay, that's DOT, but guess what? DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, deals with all the pipes and the water and the sewer underground. They
mhm,
have to be involved. And then our uniform agencies, should also be involved. And then of course, always without a doubt, especially in the current sort of financial times, OMB law. And so, whether it's a project or a policy related to public spaces or public realm, it really does require that centralized quarterback
mhm.
person here at City Hall to really shepherd, herd the cats and keep that thing going.
So you sound like you are the city agency whisperer. What do you think?
I mean, I try. There's definitely a lot of back and forth. I think I would be remiss if I didn't say that there's just so much. I'm constantly in awe of like the expertise that resides in our city agencies. They very much are the sort of technical experts, but I
Mhm,
think in terms of dynamic between city hall and the agency, it's nothing. It certainly is not unique to this administration, but I think typically city hall, we're thinking big picture, we're thinking moonshot. What are some bold visionary things that we can push and try to do, and then the agencies usually sort of ground some of those ideas, and then you hope that process of like blue sky ground truthing ends up with an outcome that is actually sort of implement, like we're able to actually implement and deliver like a concrete project or policy.
great, good. I have a few questions here I'd like to throw at you.
Sure.
First of all, and how can neighborhood groups like the Old Astoria Neighborhood Association help you and be helpful to your process?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think just starting, I think just this, like having sessions like this, I think is really wonderful. I so that people understand that this role exists and why it exists and what is its function.
Mhm.
I think that is really helpful, and I think to the extent that if the community-based organizations and neighborhood-based organizations have ideas or issues, that you guys know that there's a place that you can go to. Of course, you guys can. I'm sure, Richard, more people in city government probably than I do, but if you are feeling like you're not really sure where to go or start or which jurisdiction, there's always a place that you can come to at City Hall to help.
What you say is was probably true a few years ago, but there's been so many changes recently in personnel and staff that I would end up going to you first, I think. Anyway, okay. And what have you been some of your biggest challenges today? Where have you had a lot of pushback? Um,
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I will say that number one, it's just a budget sort of reality of where we are right now in the city budget, dealing with multiple crises right now. And so I think as our agencies are getting, pegs, and having to really be in this time of like a resource constrained environment, the challenge has been, how do we build new, right? How do we continue to expand our public space footprint, number one. And then number two is this idea of, and it comes up all the time in so many of the public meetings I go to. I think everybody knows, yeah, if you keep building new things, you need to be able to maintain them. And we have existing spaces now that still need, additional maintenance support. How do we solve for that? And so that those kind of budget and staffing constraints are really real, and trying to find creative ways to either reprioritize existing capital dollars for some of these projects, or I think it's about trying to again rely on external partnerships, right? Because the city can't do everything. But if the Old Astoria Neighborhood Association has an idea, a way for activation, or beautification, and can be helpful and be a partner to the city, then we should find ways to make that kind of partnership easier and not make you go through, a lot of like barriers or red tape to try to make that happen.
music to my ears. We'll see what happens to our ears and the
Yeah.
board here. Yep. Um, and then along those lines, what's the most exciting project that you're working on now, and how do you define success in these projects in the first place?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's like asking me to pick, my favorite child. I have three kiddos, and but here in terms of work, I have to say that the we've been doing something really exciting with the Brooklyn Bridge, on the Manhattan side of the Brooklyn Bridge. If folks are not familiar, there's a whole effort that's really community driven, which is why I think it's my favorite, because the whole idea and concept for this was really sort of bottom up. It was a kind of group of local residents that lived in and around the kind of Brooklyn Bridge. So it's like that intersection of like Chinatown, effectively, and like the seaport. It feels a little bit. Um, uh, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like the interstitial spaces between a lot of different neighborhoods kind of converging at the foot of the Brooklyn Bridge on the Manhattan side. A lot of the local residents and public housing tenant associations leader, they like got together and they just saw, um, it's an area that has like such little public space, and they would
Mhm.
walk by the Brooklyn Bridge and see that, oh my god, there used to be all of this public space, but that's all closed off now because of DOT bridge construction repair work.
Uh,
And so they came and approached, DOT and City Hall and approached me and my team to say, hey, look at how the space used to be used. And they did the archival research and showed us
Mhm.
images of these vibrant spaces under the bridge that were a huge, skateboard scene and lots of access. So in other words, we were so compelled by this community's like vision and the kind of history work that they did, that we pushed DOT to open up that space. Like, let's go, let's get the repair work done, and let's move, let's open up these spaces. We opened up the first tranche earlier this summer, and we're planning to open up more of that space under the Brooklyn Bridge next year. And to me, that is something that is like, again, the idea came from the community. It actually was like a really low cost solution, right? It wasn't involving like, let's find gazillion dollars to try to build this whole new thing. It was just like, hey, how about you can we move the contractors and move the fencing and open up that space back up to the public. And such an easy thing, and that has made all the difference.
That's great. We've had similar situations here with both under the Queensboro Bridge, and they recently renovating a new park area down there. They're trying to remove some of the storage spots. It's still contentious, so. And even under the Triborough Bridge here, we have a series of playgrounds down here, which were all basically brought up to speed maybe 10, 11 years ago, went through the same process. And it is a
Hmm.
great asset to the community. And not only that, do we have that under there, we also have the ambulance station there for the areas being
Yeah.
handled there and taking that off the streets.
Yeah.
Um, okay, good. One other, I guess, last question, that this is something that's come up. A few people have been asking about this since you are involved with open spaces.
Yeah.
There have been some issues locally with some of the small business, which we'll be discussing more further, and some of the open streets. Some of the businesses are finding that it's affecting them negatively. Have you looked at any kind of, because I think the open streets are a great asset, but they're also, you don't want to affect small business in a negative way.
Yeah.
So have you looked at all, or have you got any feedback along those lines?
Yeah. I mean, I think you raise a very good um, kind of question, or like sort of an example,
Mhm.
that I think generally, there have been reports done. I know, and sorry, I apologize. It's escaping me right now, but I think
Mhm.
maybe it was last year. I know DOT partner with Bloomberg Philanthropies to do a study on sort of the impact of, maybe it was narrow to just sort of like the outdoor dining setups that were, or the restaurants that were on open streets,
Restaurant
um,
openings as opposed
restaurants on
yeah.
right, that were on open streets,
Mhm.
saw an uptick, an increase
Mhm.
in business and sales, right?
Mhm.
So that's
Mhm.
just one data point. And we know, look, I think this is the wonderful thing about New York too. Like, I think so much of the street topology and the kind of commercial and pedestrian foot like activity, um, large can vary from corridor to corridor, neighborhood to neighborhood. So I'm sensitive of the neighborhood context here.
Mhm.
But then the other data set recently that we have found too is on Fifth Avenue. Last hot winter holiday season, the city partnered with the Fifth Avenue Association to close down, or having holiday streets, where we
Right.
shut down, Fifth Avenue to traffic. It was
Mhm.
filled to the brim with people.
Mhm.
And then we did the study with MasterCard to show that, and this is just MasterCard users, there was an uptick in additional sales of $3 million
Okay.
dollars. And so, in terms of Astoria, or I'm not sure like which street or corridor.
Mhm.
I think sometimes if there's opportunities to kind of gr- like do some data analysis,
Mhm.
that can really help measure impact, either both positive or negative, right? Of
We have a little different dynamic here. Primarily, we're more automobile driven than you would be in Manhattan. So
Right.
that could be part of the of what's going on here. Anyway, it would be something to look at. Again, like I say, I'm greatly in favor and have been pushing for open streets in a lot of different areas for many years. We are in general too. So
Yeah.
But I also think that we also have to look out for the particularly the brick and mortar
Yeah,
restaurants.
absolutely.
That they are a huge part of our community. We're known for it, and we need to protect them and make sure they survive. So good. Okay. Good. So yeah. Is there anything else you would like to say in terms of outreach? If people want to contact you, how they would go about it?
Yeah, I'm happy to share my, I guess, my email or my staff email. That's probably better. So Richard, I don't know if I could share that now with everyone, or maybe in one of your future newsletters, you can kind of let folks know my contact information. Happy to get in touch.
You can put it in the private chat if you'd like, and then we will send it out on the YouTube and Facebook feed.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I mean, I would say in terms of just kind of final, words or thoughts is that I think that, you know, I think having quality, vibrant public spaces is so important to quality of life, in any community. I think that on the government side, it is again, the bureaucracy could be quite complex involving that, and I think my goal and our team's goal here is to sort of be responsive and try to like be problem solving oriented so that we can you know uh, at least run down and be more efficient in terms of getting answers back to people on like where things stand or projects or issues or ideas or what have you. And so it just really encourage folks out there, if there's ideas, if there's ideas for projects or policies, like we're here, we're open, and really would welcome the feedback.
Great. Well, if you accomplish even half of that, we're going to be so far ahead. And I really wish you well, and I hope you keep your sanity.
Thank you. I need it.
And there's a couple projects I do want to reach out to you about that I'd like to discuss with you further.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
That'd be great. Yeah, and then I'll put my email into the chat for you here, so you can, distribute. Yep.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And again, we greatly appreciate you joining us, and we look forward to any updates. And anytime you want to do any outreach, we're here and we're happy to help.
Appreciate it so much. Thanks again, Richard. Thanks again, everybody, for having